remember a time when limited edition shit was cool. Nowadays, they just take a pre-existing device, recolor it, double the price tag, and call it a day. Or more accurately, they call it a special edition. This video is about the 1% of the time special editions are actually as advertised. Around 2,500 years ago, I reviewed a controller by the name of the Eswap X Pro, and it has since gotten a Forza facelift with a new wide body kit, a wrap, and an R added to the end of its name because Honda Type R type beat or some shit. Unlike the Xbox Series X special edition controller released a while ago, Thrustmaster actually went through the trouble of adding a new layer to their device with the thumbstick wheel module thing, transforming the Eswap from a competent Pro controller into Richard Petty. But I am getting ahead of myself. We have to rewind a bit. For those unaware, the Eswap X Pro, before it became a cheating-ass NASCAR driver, was already a pretty competent Pro controller, at least it was on paper. At the price point it's offered at, it offers basically all the features you'd expect from any Pro controller offered in a similar price range, aside from wireless connectivity, of course. But you get things like 4 rear buttons, which are nice for shifting, trigger stops. In this case, a Clicky ABXY and D-pad as well, which feel okay, but none of these are the reason that anyone buys Eswap controllers. The Eswap, which I'm now going to call the XR, is solely purchased for its interchangeable thumbsticks and D-pad. This allows Eswap X and XR controllers to have an interchangeable thumbstick layout between PlayStation and Xbox, and more importantly, you can replace these if they happen to break. This would be a $20 replacement instead of replacing a controller worth almost $200. No. Wait. Pair this with the previously mentioned features. Like I said, on paper, you have a pretty good Pro controller, and this is before you get to any of the added Forza features, which there's only like a couple of. But anyways, before we get into all that, how about you go out and make your own Pro controller steering wheel mutation from Chernobyl? You can do this with the service sponsoring today's video, being PCBWay. You can use their service to make all the necessary PCBs for the internals, use their 3D printing service to make the shell for such an abomination of a device. Recently, they celebrated their 10-year anniversary, having served hundreds of thousands of customers very well, so if you're interested in a service that might be able to help you with your DIY projects, be sure to check them out via the first link in the description, and I appreciate PCBWay for sponsoring whatever the hell this is. Right, so I kind of did shit on special editions in the intro, but I do still stand by that. Especially the Razer special editions. Fuck those things. This is not much different in price from the Thrustmaster Eswap X. It is $180. I believe the original Eswap X was $170. Regardless, the XR can nowadays be found for as little as $145 on places like Amazon occasionally. And realistically, if they wanted, especially because of the panel design of the Eswap controllers, they could have just redesigned the controller visually, and it would have been perfectly fine. People still would have bought this. But they decided to essentially give you a miniature steering wheel. The XR comes with one of these wheels out of the box, but you can purchase one separately to be used on other Thrustmaster controllers on the website for about 30 bucks. Technically making it the cheapest steering wheel Thrustmaster offers. Understandable though, you only get 95 degrees of rotation, which is like not much. I mean, anything close to this is going to be not much, because if you compare it to something like my direct drive wheel, if it steered all the way around, it would probably tangle your thumb up. The wheel can be placed in any configuration you like, and it always registers as left stick, so you're always going to be steering with it. I found it most comfortable in the upper left-hand corner. Whenever I had it in any of the lower slots, it was a little painful for my thumb, but that's just me. Now, actually using the wheel is a bit strange, because it kind of behaves like a full-size wheel and kind of behaves like a thumbstick. More like a full-size wheel, weirdly though. What's so weird about this is the fact that controllers and wheels are played very differently with driving games. As a full-size wheel and pedal kit like the Moza one I plan on reviewing very soon, everything is done at a much slower pace than it is with the controller. And the controller, your throttle, your brakes, your steering are essentially instant, at least by comparison. A full-size wheel does not allow you to carry out actions at the same pace something like this Thrustmaster controller will, and the wheel kind of works more full-size in that respect. You have to be very graceful with it. You can't just flick it back and forth and adjust it super quick. So if you want to do like hill climbs or drifting or anything that's like a lot of turning, which I'd assume you want to use that for, it does take quite a bit of time to get used to. After a period of time, it is fun to use, but it's definitely an adjustment. A lot of the gameplay you guys are going to see is Forza, a little bit of Forza. Forza's kind of gay though, and mostly BeamNG. By the way, this isn't going to be Forza 5 gameplay. It's going to be Forza 4 because I already buy all the Call of Duty games, which are all the same. I'm not going to buy Forza ones too. While driving in game, the rubber grip used for the wheel is very nice, but I can kind of see how it'll be different for certain people, as this is something I don't talk about often, but people have very different sweat, and it kind of makes for different experiences on these controllers with all these rubber bits. For some people, things are grippy. For some people, things aren't. It just depends on you. The only thing I can definitively fault the stick for is being susceptible to stick drift in the exact same way the thumbsticks are, as it also uses carbon film potentiometers to do the whole, you know, thumbstick thing, so your wheel can drift. Laugh. What really fucks me up about this is it's not just that you have the thumbstick drift issue with the thumbsticks and the steering wheel module, you're also risking it with the triggers, because usually these are Hall effect magnetic sensors in the triggers for like 99% of controllers. Pro controllers, normal ones, all of them. These also use potentiometers for some fucking reason, which I could imagine is likely the reason Thrustmaster has a couple of complaints on places like Amazon about their triggers failing or not working properly. The faceplate appears to be doing okay with D2LS white Omron switches rated for 5 million clicks with 0.3 millimeters of actuation distance. The D-pad uses less obvious but still very noticeable 6x6 tack switches. These are the yellow KSC 10s rated for 5 million clicks with an incredible 4.9 millimeters of actuation distance via this massive rubber dome. Travel distance and stability out the window. Well, all the buttons are rated for 5 million clicks. They're reliable, right? No, nothing on this controller is trustworthy at all. You do get a 1-year warranty, that's something. But alternatively, you could just buy the wheel module and then one of the cheaper Thrustmaster controllers or one of the older ones, so it's less of a financial risk. Don't tell them I told you that. Anyways, that's about it for reliability in the Teardown. If you're curious, other Thrustmaster controllers are pretty much identical. The racing wheel is a very nice addition, and I like the wrap. But aside from that, everything else here is essentially a device I've already reviewed before, but I kind of feel like a dickhead if I didn't at least kind of go over some of the features, the main features of this controller, before moving on to the conclusion. So, the NXG Mini Sticks. These are still to this day some of the most accurate sticks you can buy for a very temporary period of time before they die. They're rated for a grand total of 2 million clicks, which is a fucking complete bullshit. It's just a bullshit. That's what it is. These sticks are like top thrill dragster engines. They're the peak of performance for like 15 seconds and then they're actually dead. That being said, when everything is working and working properly in unison, Thrustmaster's controllers do feel like chewing 5 gum. The D-pad, while somewhat clicky, is nowhere near the level of the ABXY buttons. It feels awful, unstable, fluffy, but apparently that's how it's supposed to feel based on the description of the switches. ABXY are very crisp, very stable, but take a crazy amount of force to actuate. Overall, the faceplate buttons are okay. A very meh attitude is not what I'm going to give for the rear buttons. The rear buttons fucking suck. It is literally the worst rear button layout I've ever seen in my entire life. This is the worst 4-button setup of all time. It's the boat. It's the balls of all time. Way too centered. Put them out towards the grips. Sick as fucking saying it. And the trigger stops, while they are trigger stoppy, they could definitely be shorter. But they do make the dead zones shorter when you activate the trigger stop, so there is that. The rear buttons are useful for shifting up and down in things like racing games. I wouldn't say they're incredibly useful in shooters because the shooters are a lot more intense. But the rear buttons in something like COD would be like sprint or jump or some other AIDS-related illness. Depending on what you use, you might not use them all that much. The controller's too big, buttons are placed too far inward, they're too small. And speaking of size, this controller is also the size of 2 square body pickup trucks. Smaller hands, avoid. Finishing up, we have some on-the-fly features like headset volume controls, 2 swappable profiles, and the ability to remap the rear buttons, which you could also do in the Thrustmaster X software. I'm not going to go over that in depth now. You can look at a tutorial linked in the description below. It has practically everything you'd expect from a Pro controller featuring software at this price point. I can't even say that anymore because GameSir completely fucked that up, but whatever. And that just about sums up the Eswap XR. I'd say it's basically just Thrustmaster putting a new set of wheels and tires on what was already a decent car to begin with. But does that actually make it worth next month's water bill? So unfortunately, I was sent a direct drive wheel just before this video, and it's only about twice the price of this controller. This controller is almost $200. That direct drive wheel, which includes the wheel, base, and pedals, was $400. So I can really only see a couple of possibilities here. If you're someone who generally just plays racing games, whether you're on Xbox or PC or PlayStation, just get a wheel. But if you're someone who's a little bit more dynamic and you play racing games alongside shooters, a couple of other things, maybe a story-based game here and there, I could then see the versatility of the Eswap XR or the Eswap X coming into play. But in my mind, this is really a collector's item. Because while it does have, you know, crazy software, crazy features, all of this ability, like I said, it's not the most reliable device and it's incredibly expensive. And you know, there's one actual issue with this controller I didn't even mention. The wheel always registers as left stick, right? You can't use the map in Forza because it only goes left and right. So you always have to have the wheel module on hand. So actually playing the game with the controller, unless you just know the map, is a little weird and kind of tedious, taking this out and in and out and in and out and in. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention, because it's a relatively recent issue, sometimes the wheel inverts. The controls invert, don't know why. Would like that to stop. That, the fact that the wheel can also get stick drift just like your thumbsticks. Also, it didn't come with the swappable thumbsticks. The original Eswap X Pro did. The ones that you unscrew and put on. I assume the extra space in the box was being taken up by this absolutely fucking massive Xbox code, which is your guys', by the way. I haven't used it. Overall, this gets like a 62 out of 100. Or some shit like that. It's supposed to be reliable, it's marketed as such, it isn't, and the high price tag for any of these Thrustmaster controllers, I just don't really see it as worth it, especially with what, you know, is offered from competitors nowadays at the same price point or even cheaper. This is for collectors, and for people who have, like, other shit that they can use to game. Like, this isn't used for, like, a main device. Carmighty would probably have a fun time with this. I would love to see a car hunt with this. This is nice for shit like that. A gimmick video. Don't use this. I would feel a lot better about Thrustmaster controllers if they weren't as problematic as they seem to be. And while I do still stand by a lot of what I said about Thrustmaster's controllers features in my previous reviews, I also wasn't as aware as I am today about the reliability problems. So their features, as cool as they are and as one-off as they are, the price and reliability make it very difficult for me to basically recommend them in any situation. Like I said, this is almost $200, and for $400 you can get a fully steel set of pedals, gas and brake with the ability to buy a clutch later on, and a 4 Nm direct drive wheel with a bunch of fucking buttons on the wheel, all compatible with Xbox and PC. Reviewing that soon. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I sincerely do. I really appreciate the response I got from you guys on the video where I talked a little bit more personally about what I was thinking and how I was doing. I've wanted to make videos that are not centered around tech for a while, and now I know I can do that without the channel, you know, collapsing into a fucking pit. I probably will, so you guys may see more of that from me here soon. For those who are worried or were curious, I am in fact doing better. Thank you. I love you guys so much. Be sure to follow my Instagram and the Discord if you want to have a dialogue or this, that, or the other. And I shall see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.